Old versus new, which one is better? And should these even be compared? Hello, welcome back to Seldomly Often. I'm Daniel, today we're talking fragrances, and this is the first impression comparison between Guerlain Shalimar and Chanel Le Lion. In this video series, I compare and give my first impressions on two fragrances, usually in sample form, that I chose to cover a specific topic. This is not a fragrance battle, we're not here to decide which of the two fragrances is better, but we're here to talk about the wear experience and to open the conversation. I know a lot of you guys have been asking for a video about Le Lion, and I finally got a sample. I actually got a sample of many other Les Exclusives by Chanel because I don't really have much experience with them. I got Boy, I got Sycamore, I got Comet, I got Coromandel, I got Le Lion, and yes, Cœur d'Orsay. That being said, we're going to be exploring a lot of Chanel Les Exclusives in the near future, but we're going to start with Le Lion. And when I got this, I was really eager to smell this. I have not smelled this yet. I really wanted to do this on camera. There has been a lot of talk about this fragrance. A lot of people are hyping it up. A lot of reviewers, including Personalized, say that this is one of the best, if not the best, Chanel Les Exclusives out there. This is being praised for its depth, for its nuances, for its elegance, and its presence. It's apparently, again, one of the best Chanels out there, and it's being compared to masterpieces of the past, such as Shalimar by Guerlain. I decided to pull out this very special Shalimar Mini just for this first impression comparison. And although I don't have much experience with Shalimar as a whole, or at least not experience that is worth talking about because it's very, very far back, this one here is actually a vintage version, and I've been sitting on this mini for a long time, and I got this within a bundle of other vintage minis that includes Chanel No. 5, Guerlain Mitsuko, among others. Those two, by the way, I'm going to be featuring in a standalone first impression comparison because I'm going to be talking about vintage perfumery and if it's worth pursuing that thing. But let's get back to today's video and today's topic. Today we're going to be comparing Le Lion by Chanel to Guerlain's Shalimar. And I decided to jump on the bandwagon and compare Le Lion to Shalimar because, again, often the Guerlain is referenced when talking about the Chanel. And apparently they both have a very beautiful, very vanillic, very ambery, very warm and enveloping dry down. So we're going to see how these fare. We're going to see if these vibe with me. I have to preface that I'm not a fan of ambery fragrances. I'm not a fan of vanillic fragrances. I have been a fan of ambery fragrances in the past, but I have to say that given the fact that a lot of amber fragrances tend to smell very, very similar to one another, I kind of got into this amber fatigue. And now I have a selected few amber fragrances that are pretty much my references, one being Grand Soir by MFK, the other one being Ambre Sultan by Serge Lutens. Those are absolutely milestones in my amber collection. I also have other amber leaning fragrances that I really, really like, namely Towers, L'air du désert marocain, but that is a little bit of a deviation from your typical amber formula. I don't know what it is about amber, it just feels kind of lazy to me. Maybe it's because it's so overused in many dry downs for many fragrances, and I totally get why it's used so much, especially in fragrances which are targeted to the colder months. It's mass appealing, it's super long lasting, it has a strong character. So again, I get it. It's just not for me. I feel that it's a lazy route to a dry down for fragrances. And yes, I might be subtly hinting at my frustration towards the imaginative dry down of most modern, mass appealing niche fragrances, such as Zerjo, such as PDM, such as the Argos that I recently sampled. All of them kind of smell the same. It's just a really boring type of dry down. And unless you manage to pull this off in a standout way, maybe by either being subtle and elegant or by increasing the complexity to a very interesting level, I'm not really sold on the concept. So I'm really hoping that these two do not fall in that lazy ambery space, and I'm really hoping that these will kind of like trigger me in a very positive way. Before we start, let me just remind you how all this works. I'll be spraying, and in this case applying, directly on skin, left and right arm. I'll be talking about the very first opening of these fragrances, my experiences with the house, and just a general introduction. Then I'll step away, come back after maybe a couple hours. In this case, I know it's gonna be a couple hours because I have something to do in the evening. I'm gonna be talking about my forecasted longevity, use cases and versatility, price to performance ratio of these two, and finally, I'll give my overview and recommendations on these two assumingly beautiful fragrances. Once again, before we start, I just want to highlight that I have almost zero experiences with these two fragrances. This is not a full review, it's a first impression comparison, so I might not get the full picture. And when we're talking about fragrances with a high degree of complexity and with a lot of fine nuances, you might need multiple wears to really understand what's going on. So forgive me if I miss something crucial about these scents. If my opinion appears to be a little bit surface level, I'm gonna be doing my best to be unbiased and to be just straight up with you. All right, let's get started. I'm gonna be spraying Le Lion on my left arm and I'm gonna be applying Shalimar on my right arm. Yes, I'm fully aware that there's a difference in experience between spraying and applying. I don't really want to transfer this in a spray bottle, so we're gonna do the best with what we have. This is the first time that I do a first impression comparison with two different methods, but we're gonna try to take this into account if necessary. All right, Le Lion on my left arm. Let's go with 3 good sprays here. These are nice samples, by the way. They even have a nice picture. They're 5 mLs. I plan to wear these a lot more after these first impression comparisons. I really want to dive into the world of the Chanel private line and to give these mini wears and mini opportunities before I even decide to pull the trigger, unless I'm super impressed. For whatever reason, I really wasn't attracted to this line. Maybe because my experiences with other private lines was less than interesting. The Dior line hasn't really piqued my interest. Yes, I have smelled Eau Noire, which is absolutely beautiful. And from the YSL, I have smelled Baby Cat. I have quickly smelled Tuxedo, but they were both very pedestrian, and I love the Baby Cat, by the way. But they're all very simple, very elegant type of scents. And maybe I kind of abandoned the idea of the private lines because I tend to be a lot more attracted to experimental and artistic type of fragrances. And these are more on the safe side objectively. All right, let's give this a sniff. I can definitely already smell the citruses in the air. This is really not what I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting. Again, I don't really have a reference for this. I've watched a couple of reviews. I watched people talk about this and they say that it's actually quite animalic. I don't get any type of animalics in here. It's very sweet. It's overly sweet, a little bit too much for my taste. The citruses in here are bright. They're zesty, they're zingy, but they have a very candied quality to them. For whatever reason, the first fragrance that comes to mind, which is similar to this, is something like Musc Ravageur. But Musc Ravageur actually has a lot of lavender to freshen things up. Actually, I recently sampled Bengal Rouge by Papillon, and the opening is strikingly similar in vibe. Yes, the Papillon goes a little bit more spicy, has a lot more cinnamon, and this one here has a lot more citric zestiness and zing. But overall, the general vibe of these fragrances, being vanillic and very energetic, one with the citruses, one with the spices, is actually quite similar and comparable. It's quite sweet, maybe a little bit too sweet to my taste. It's really interesting, it's really potent. I fully understand that smelling a fragrance like this up close might not be the ideal situation and you're meant to get these in the air as you move about. But this is just my method and I've been doing this always like this, so I need some sort of a reference here. The scent is already changing, it's already transforming under my nose. The citruses have definitely subdued in potency and they're kind of leaving their front seat place to more florals. I'm not really sure which florals are in here. They smell very rich, very dense. They might be more white florals. Again, I'm not really sure what I'm picking up, but they have this very clean, almost powdery component to them, which really works well with the vanilla base. And the vanilla here was immediately detectable even upon initial sniff. It was beautifully paired with the citruses, giving them a lot more body and a lot more sweetness, maybe aiding to that candied effect. This is definitely very perfumey in nature. It's not really evocative. It's not really giving me any type of imagery. From what I've watched and what I've read, I know that Le Lion de Chanel is there to reference the lion, which is a massive symbol of the house, and also the zodiac sign of the founder of the house. And I kind of get the color orange, I do get the density and energy, but this is far from smelling like a lion. Obviously, I know that Chanel would never make something that smells literally like an animal, but overall, it's such an abstraction of that concept that if I wasn't told what this was, and if I didn't know the name of the perfume, I probably would have never connected the dots. This is a very warm, very enveloping, very dense type of fragrance. It's also quite energetic in a way, so maybe there is that power of the lion, the power of the animal, but it also feels like a warm hug. It kind of feels like a warm blanket. So it's a little bit of a jarring type of comparison. And again, this was advertised to be quite animalic for a Chanel. I get no animalics whatsoever in here. This is super smooth. The vanillic aspect has no animalics, and vanilla can be a little bit animalic at times if there's like an overly sweet type of fermented component to it. Here, it's nothing like that. There's no muskiness, no sweatiness, no funky type of odor. This is a very pleasant, very mass appealing type of fragrance. I think that this would be a very, very easy to wear in the colder months. Now we're definitely in a stage where the citruses again have been subdued. You can definitely pick up on the florals without exactly pinpointing which florals is what. There's still that vanilla ambre base there, and that's pretty much about it. You can definitely tell that this is super high quality. It's well designed, it's well put together, but it's not too original. And again, maybe Chanel here is not really reinventing the wheel, as they say, but I've smelled this sort of thing in the dry down of many other fragrances, not exactly like this. I keep getting Musc Ravageur as my reference. Again, that's a lot fresher, but the overall vibe of the fragrance is actually quite similar. So I'm not really sure if owning both would lead to redundancy. It's a little bit early to tell, but there's definitely something that is missing that I've heard talked about in many, many reviews, and that is the leather accord. I get no leather whatsoever for now. This is a very polite, very balanced vanilla, citrusy, floral scent. It's very, very elegant, beautiful, but not super original. And I like it. I'm not blown away. I'm not gonna go out and purchase a bottle right now. And I'm totally open to the fact that this might be one of those fragrances that needs a lot of time to grow on me. It might need multiple wears to really fully sink its teeth into me, kind of like Grand Soir did by MFK. And again, I might be a little bit resistant to this vanilla amber thing, so there's a bias component in there also. But yeah, for now, definitely beautiful, definitely wearable. I like it a lot. I have to give it a high score just because it smells high quality and well designed. But I think we have to let this sit for now. I'll obviously get back to it in the dry down as per usual. But let's move on to the other scent on my radar arm. All right, on to this really cute mini. And I mean, look at it. Look how cute it is. I'm really excited about this because it is a vintage version of Shalimar. I'm not experienced enough with Shalimar to know if there's a difference between the vintagey versions and the modern versions. If you're a Shalimar fanatic and know everything about this fragrance, please share your experiences in the comments below, because I'm really interested to know if the current formulation is as good as the vintage ones. Apparently these are super, super great. All right, so I don't really know how to apply this. I think I'm gonna go with the old school method of just like tipping the thing over and kind of like spreading it around like this. I don't wanna waste it. I think we have enough. Yeah, we have enough. Definitely detectable, so we do have enough. This is beautiful, actually. You know what? They smell remarkably similar up front. And the citruses in here are a lot tamer. There's a lot more florals. I'm not really sure what the concentration is of this. I don't know if it's the EDT, EDP, or anything else. But it definitely smells more oily than Le Lion. It has this weird vintagey type of smell to it that is really, really difficult to describe. I don't know why, it's kind of reminding me of your typical Chypre construction. There's something edgy in here. There's something that is giving this a lot of character. I'm not really sure what I'm getting, but in the base, there's this bitter, tangy aftertaste. There's something that is cutting through that vanilla in a very peculiar, very attractive type of way. I don't know if it's a specific type of musk, maybe some animalic, maybe some oak moss, but there's something in there that gives this a little bit of sharpness and character, which is really pleasing to me. This is absolutely gorgeous. I wasn't expecting this at all. I was expecting a much more sweet, vanillic, women's type of perfume, because Shalimar, I think, was originally advertised to women. And yes, I know that vintagey perfumes for women are now basically the unisex in the modern times, such as also Mitsuko and such as other stuff. So no surprises there. But for whatever reason, I thought that this was a lot more sweet, a lot more over the top, and it's actually way less sweet than Le Lion. And the citrus notes in here are definitely there. You can easily pick them up, but they're a lot more subdued compared to Le Lion. In Le Lion, they're very bright, zingy, and energetic. This is a lot more calm. It's a lot more subtle. The main thing that I'm attracted to again is that animalic note. It kind of reminds me of Salomé by Papillon, which I again recently gave my first impressions on. I now have that bottle and I really like it. I'm kind of getting an ammonia type of vibe that is lifting the whole fragrance up in the tonal range. It's much more wearable than Le Lion for me. Le Lion is much more denser, it's more vanillic, more ambery, less original. This is very beautiful. I like this a lot. Wow, I'm really impressed. This is super beautiful. Whoever is watching this video that is also experienced with Shalimar, please let me know if the newer formulations are anything like this, because if yes, I'm going to be definitely grabbing a bottle because it's absolutely gorgeous. To be completely honest, I was expecting these two fragrances to smell a lot more similar to each other. Yes, they have some things in common. They have the vanilla in common. They're both very elegant, very well designed, and very well refined. But Le Lion is a lot more energetic with the citruses up top. That is the defining character of the opening of this. While Shalimar has this beautiful way of being put together. It's just so subtle. Everything is like super smooth, and you get this edgy animalic or whatever note in the bottom that really has a lot of character, and it really gives it a vintagey feeling. Again, this is a vintage batch, so it might be that or not. Overall, color me impressed. These two fragrances are absolutely gorgeous. They might not be my preferred scent style, they might not be my thing, but the opening is absolutely perfect, and they're super well put together, really balanced, really beautiful, really elegant, and they're easily some of the most balanced and interesting fragrances within this relatively simple type of concept. Before I take a break, let me just go over these two fragrances once again to see if they transitioned anymore. Le Lion is actually quite similar to where I left it off. Again, not much time has passed, and I do expect a lot of evolution throughout the many hours of wear that this is likely to give you. The fragrance is still very elegant, very balanced. It has a little bit more of a powdery floral type of vibe. There's definitely still that vanillic component in the base, which is just giving the whole thing a lot of body. The citrusy zing is still there, but definitely has more of a backseat now. It's still detectable. It still gives it a hint of energy. The fragrance as a whole just sits in the mid-tone to base tone. Everything is very warm, very dense, very enveloping. Beautifully put together. Again, balanced and elegant, but it hasn't changed much from before. Weird, the similar thing happened with the Guerlain. Basically, the citrus notes up top sank down into the tonal range, and the flowery, dusty, powdery component really came out. It's really strong. It's much sweeter than before, and it's kind of masking that vintagey whatever feeling that was in the base. That thing that was initially cutting through the scent sweetness is a lot less present. It's a lot less noticeable. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm kind of getting overwhelmed by that flowery, powdery aspect. There's still a little bit of that ammonia type of lift that is bringing the fragrance up in the tonal range. And I think that this is a little bit lighter overall than Le Lion. It's a little bit less dense. It's a little bit more wearable. They're both definitely geared towards colder months. I would not wear this in the heat just because of the vanilla factor. It might be my bias personally, but I just can't wear vanilla or sweet fragrances in the heat. They just kind of bloom out of control on my skin, and they become overwhelming very fast. All right, it's definitely time for a break. I definitely need a breather. I have some stuff to do. See you in a bit for the dry down. All right, we're back. We're definitely in the dry down phase for these two fragrances. Both have been very beautiful. It's been about an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes. As I said, I have some stuff to do. I can't really give these a full days of wear, but I think that I came to my conclusions for these beautiful, elegant, gorgeous scents. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to cover the wear experience for these two. They actually behave quite similarly. They dry down in a very predictable, smooth, elegant way. There's no jarring transition. There's nothing really weird happening. Even projection-wise, they're very predictable, very smooth. They are definitely on the more subtle side, especially compared to a lot of beast mode fragrances that I have. You can easily smell them around you, but they're not overpowering in any way. Yes, you might need a little bit more juice. I only gave 3 sprays of Le Lion, and I only dribbled a little bit of Shalimar on my right arm, so there might be that. But overall, I feel that they're not really overpowering. They're not designed to be overpowering. These are very elegant, very French type of perfumey perfumes that are meant to be subtly beautiful, subtly elegant, without being up your nostrils and in your face all the time. So yes, the wear experience is absolutely gorgeous. thumbs up for that. The dry down phase is where these two fragrances completely set apart in very unique ways. I'm very, very surprised. Starting out with Le Lion, I initially criticized that I wasn't picking up on the leather that was highly advertised in many reviews. Well, I was wrong. The leather definitely came out, and now it's easily one of the most detectable notes in this fragrance. The vanilla aspect here has significantly toned down. It still gives body to the fragrance. It still gives it a little bit of sweetness. It gives it roundness. But overall, the dry down for Le Lion is definitely leather centric. The leather in here is not primal, it's not raw, it's not really animalic. It smells more like a high quality suede. And yes, you might say that the fact that there's leather in here at all gives it a little bit of an animalic edge, maybe compared to other Chanel. So I don't know. I'm not experienced with Chanel Les Exclusives enough to tell you that, but overall I feel that given my experience, this is still incredibly wearable, incredibly smooth. It smells edgy in a way in the dry down, but it's not overpowering. This again is not a loud fragrance whatsoever, especially in the dry down. So you're not blasting people with leather notes such as with Ombre Nomade. This is much more elegant, much more subdued. Again, the leather in here feels high quality, it feels clean, it feels refined, it feels processed in a way. Kind of smells like a high quality pair of like suede shoes. It doesn't really smell like a handbag. It doesn't really smell like a motorcycle jacket. It's a lot more clean. It's a lot more prepared in a way. So I don't know, I really like it. The dry down has really surprised me. The scent is definitely back into the mid-tone, maybe because a lot of the vanilla sweetness in here has definitely subdued and has again left place to this very beautiful, very elegant type of leather. It's gorgeous. I really like this and I think I'm falling in love. The beautiful transition is so smooth. I think it's the best part of this fragrance. The way that it starts off, super energetic, super zingy, then it kind of goes into this flowery, powdery type of sweetness. And then as it dries down, this leather really just emerges. Everything just literally dries up and you get this beautiful kind of edgy type of growl to it. Maybe I'm being biased by the name Le Lion, but now everything, the whole imagery of this scent just falls into place in a much more natural way. I was conflicted at first in the opening because I thought it was a little bit too sweet, a little bit too blankety, but the dry down for this is absolutely gorgeous and it's right up my alley. In a very contrasting way to Le Lion, the dry down for Shalimar definitely shows its female face and it smells a lot more like a woman's perfume in the dry down. It's much more powdery, much more subtle. And this one also kind of dried up in a sense. There was never a massive vanilla sweet note in here. The ambery base was just giving body to these beautiful florals actually. And now that the scent dried up, it became super powdery in wear experience. It feels like it's sitting on the skin like a layer of powder. I still cannot detect the florals, but they do smell dense, they smell rich, they smell very velvety in texture. It smells like the beautiful petals of a velvety rose or maybe like a furry type of jasmine. There's nothing fresh, watery, or ozonic about these flowers whatsoever. They smell super smooth. They smell very powdery, very indolic, very heavy. I think that this is one of the most beautiful and elegant dry downs of any woman's fragrance that I've smelled recently. And actually, this is a lot more feminine now. It started out very unisex, the animalic type of weirdness that was in there. Again, I can't really pinpoint it. I have to give it a second wear to really understand what that is. Has significantly faded. There's really no animalics in here now. And this smell is just super smooth, super beautiful. I could probably pull this off as I have no trouble wearing heavy florals or more feminine leaning fragrances. But objectively, I have to say that this leans a little bit more mature woman. This is very classy, very elegant, very upscale, but I can also totally see why it's not as popular with the younger generation. This definitely smells like a very important, more mature type of woman. Really gorgeous though, absolutely gorgeous. Let's quickly cover my forecasted practicalities for these two. Starting off with performance, I feel that both perform exceptionally well. You can easily get a full days of wear on these two, maybe 8 hours plus, no problem. Again, the projection is not massive. I haven't really sprayed a ton of Le Lion, so I don't know if you need more sprays, as I mentioned before. They do lean a little bit more elegant, they do lean a little bit more subtle, but again, we're talking about Chanel and Guerlain, so that's kind of expected. When it comes to use cases and versatility, I do feel that these lean a little little bit more elegant, a little bit more evening type of wear. They both open up with a lot of character in slightly different ways, but the mid dry down to dry down is where these scents really transition to their elegant state. And I do feel that you kind of need to dress up for them in order to really emphasize what these are, and to be worn probably in the evening. These are a little bit too heavy for day-to-day type of scent, day-to-day type of activities. They're just a little bit too dense. They're just really noticeable, and not in projection, but in scent profile. You always feel like you're wearing something that is kind of not appropriate. Again, it really depends on the person. It might be just me. I was sitting in the house working on my computer while wearing these, but I tried to put myself in third person mode and thinking about wearing these at the office, which I will do with Le Lion, by the way, because it's absolutely gorgeous. But overall, I do think that it leans a little bit more evening. It leans a little bit more warmer lighting, maybe more subdued lighting. This is very beautiful, very elegant again. It's not for the person that wants to shout. It's a complementary accessory to a beautiful, elegant attire and a beautiful, elegant type of event. When talking demographics, I do feel that these two are quite unisex. Yes, the Guerlain might be a little bit more feminine leaning. Le Lion is 100% unisex. Even that leather cord is very smooth. It's very refined and can be easily pulled off by a woman, no problem whatsoever. Age-wise, I feel that both of these lean a little bit more mature. Again, they're quite elegant. You need a definite type of confidence, which a younger crowd just doesn't have. And although specifically for Le Lion, the opening is very zingy and energetic, these both wear in a very classical, elegant way, which again, is not really suited for the more youthful crowd. Before wrapping this up, we have to definitely mention the price for these two because it varies a lot. The Chanel is basically 5 times more expensive than the Guerlain. And again, I'm not really familiar with the new formulations of Shalimar, so bear with me with that. But you can easily get 50 ml of Shalimar EDP for about 50 to 55 bucks around here. And the Chanel is impossible to find at discounters, and it runs currently 255 euros for 75 ml. So huge price difference here. In my opinion, you really shouldn't be comparing these two price-wise anyway, because they do smell remarkably different, especially in the dry down. So if you like the way the Chanel wears, you really can't substitute it with Shalimar and vice versa. They're just completely different things. They might have the same sort of vibe and use case, but the smell is different enough that owning both might actually be not redundant at all. My final recommendations are the following. First of all, these are absolutely gorgeous and you need to get your nose on these. So get yourself a sample of either of them. If you can't, you're just missing out. Sorry, it's that simple. And especially if you're into classical, elegant, well put together, well designed perfumery, these have to be on your list. I'm not necessarily saying to go out and blind buy these, because that's never really recommended, especially for Le Lion. It's quite expensive and the dry down might be unexpected to you. They're overall super classy, very upscale, and I'm sure, I have no doubt in my mind, that these would easily gather compliments within the right circle. Are these two signature scent worthy? Maybe for you. I'm not really sure about me. They don't really fit my vibe in general. They're a little bit too elegant for my taste and they're a little bit too sweet, but I'm super impressed with Le Lion. The dry down really brought me around, changed my mind, and I'll be definitely going through this sample. And who knows, maybe down the road, I might even end up with a bottle of this. As usual, I'm super grateful for the opportunity to smell these. I admit that I was missing out. I admit that I was a little bit snobby. Do not do that. Do not miss out. Get your nose on these. You'll thank me later. If you like this type of content, if you like my approach to veil, feel free to subscribe. It always helps the channel and it's massively appreciated. If you want to interact with me, leave a comment, suggestion, opinion, or anything else down below. I always reply and I always keep the conversation open. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your time. Many more videos to come as per usual. See you in the next one and cheers.